At 6:15 on the morning of January 30th, 1944, the island of Bougainville lay half asleep beneath a pale gray sky, the kind of dawn that never quite decided whether it wanted to become day. In the darkness along the pierced steel planking of Piva North Airfield, engines coughed and sputtered, propellers flicked dew from the grass, and the silhouettes of men moved quietly among the parked aircraft. First Lieutenant Robert Hansen climbed the ladder into the cockpit of his F4U-1 Corsair and settled into the seat as though he were putting on a familiar jacket. Around him, 18 Grumman Avenger torpedo bombers rolled slowly toward the end of the runway, their crews tense, their bomb bays heavy. Everyone on the field knew where they were going. Rabaul. Simpson Harbor. The most heavily defended fortress in the Pacific. A place where the sky itself seemed hostile. Hansen tightened his straps and looked east. Somewhere beyond that horizon, Japanese intelligence had counted 70 fighter aircraft waiting. 70. 8 Corsairs would escort 18 bombers into that storm. The math was merciless. The Marine Corps had already lost 43 pilots over Rabaul in just 3 months. Hansen was 23 years old. He had 21 confirmed victories in 17 days. In 1 week, he was supposed to rotate home. 1 week from now, he should have been on a transport ship, watching the war fade behind him. Instead, he was watching torpedo bombers line up for what might be the most dangerous flight of his life. He had not always been this man. He had been born far from the Pacific, the son of Methodist missionaries in India, a boy who grew up speaking softly and wrestling fiercely, who learned discipline long before he learned how to fly. When he arrived in the South Pacific in June of 1943, he was just another young Marine pilot with more confidence than experience. His first kill came on August 4th, a single Kawasaki fighter spiraling down over La Vela. By the end of that month, he had 2 victories and the quiet satisfaction that he could survive this war. Then November came. Empress Augusta Bay. The landings at Bougainville. 6 Japanese torpedo bombers racing toward the beaches, bombs armed, men on the sand waiting helplessly. Hansen attacked alone, headlong, forcing 3 bombers to drop their loads into the sea, shooting down 3 more before a rear gunner shredded his fuel tank. Burning, leaking, out of control, he had ditched into the ocean and floated 6 hours in a rubber raft before a destroyer plucked him from the darkness. Most men would have slowed after that. Hansen did not. By January of 1944, something inside him had shifted. On January 14th, he dove alone into a swarm above Simpson Harbor and shot down 5 fighters in 12 minutes, landing with 14 bullet holes and 3 gallons of fuel. The other pilots began to whisper a new name. Butcher Bob. They watched him with admiration and unease, because Hansen did not fly like a man trying to survive. He flew like a man trying to finish something. Now, on this morning, he watched the Corsair ahead of him lift from the runway and vanish into the gray. At 6:48 he pushed the throttle forward and followed, the Pratt & Whitney engine roaring with a sound that filled the world. By 7:30 the formation crossed the coast and turned north, Simpson Harbor 90 miles ahead. He checked his guns. 6 Brownings. 2,400 rounds. Enough, maybe, for a long fight. The radio crackled. Someone had spotted them. 21 Japanese fighters were climbing out of Rabaul, rising fast through 9,000 feet. 17 Zeros. 4 Tojos. For 2 years the Zero had ruled these skies, able to turn inside anything, climb like a ghost, kill with frightening precision. Marine doctrine was simple and absolute. Never turn with a Zero. Use speed. Use altitude. Dive, strike, climb away. Never get slow. Hansen had broken that rule 16 times in 17 days. The bomber leader called out the enemy high and north. The Corsairs acknowledged. Formation discipline said stay with the bombers. Protect them. Let the enemy come. Hansen rolled inverted and dove. 7 Corsairs stayed where they were. 1 Corsair fell straight down into a formation 21 times its size. The dive drove him past 400 miles an hour. The airframe screamed. He chose the lead 0, knowing that killing the leader often shattered the rest. At 800 yards, the Japanese pilot finally saw him and tried to turn. Too late. Hansen fired and the 0 exploded into smoke and fragments, rolling helplessly toward the sea. Before anyone could react, he was through them, climbing again, 15 fighters chasing, 6 breaking toward the bombers. The tactic had worked. The bombers were breathing again. Now the fight was his. Tracers clawed past his canopy. A round tore through the tail. Another punched the wing. Hansen snap-rolled, dove, climbed, reversed, using speed and altitude like weapons. He climbed into the sun and fell again out of it, shredding a second 0 that never saw him. He rose vertically, hanging on the propeller, and found 14 fighters scattered below, hunting. Altitude was life. He chose one, dove from its blind spot, and fired. The 0 came apart so completely that no parachute appeared. 3 down. Every gun in the sky found him. He tore away at full throttle, pulling 6 GS until the edges of his vision went gray, then climbed again, then dove again. A 4th fighter fell smoking. A 5th disintegrated inside the rotating Japanese circle when Hansen slid into it like a knife and fired at point-blank range, flying with the enemy instead of against them. For 3 seconds the geometry belonged to him. Then the circle collapsed into chaos. Bullets found him now. Glass burst. Fabric tore. Hydraulic fluid streamed red along the fuselage. Still he fought. Head-on passes at closing speeds that left no time to think. 1-0 exploded under his guns. Another spun away without a tail. 9 were gone now. But the Corsair was dying. The engine ran hot. Oil pressure fell. His right aileron barely answered the stick. 6 fighters stayed with him, disciplined, patient, forcing him lower, bleeding energy with every turn. Hansen understood the geometry. They were hunting him to exhaustion. He escaped once more in a violent hammerhead and finally turned southeast, away from Rabaul, away from the fight. Over the empty ocean, the engine began to fail in earnest. Oil pressure sagged. Cylinders knocked themselves apart. The temperature needle pressed into the red. With Bougainville rising ahead, the Pratt & Whitney seized. The propeller stopped. The Corsair became a glider. 1 mile. 900 feet. 60 seconds. He judged the glide perfectly, flared onto the runway, rolled to a stop amid fire trucks and shouting men. 47 bullet holes. A shredded wing. An engine ruined beyond repair. Intelligence confirmed 4 kills that day. 4 more added to his score. 25. The newspapers called him a hero. The squadron toasted him. His commander told him gently that his tour was over. 9 days and he would be home. 3 days later, February 3rd, he volunteered again. The mission was routine. Escort the bombers. Strike the runway. Return. It went cleanly until the formation turned south and passed Cape St. George. Below them stood a lighthouse, ringed with guns and radar. Hansen broke formation. He dove alone, guns hammering stone and glass, until anti-aircraft fire filled the sky. His right wing struck the water. The Corsair tore itself apart in flame. For 1 heartbeat it almost flew again. Then it vanished into the sea. No parachute. No raft. Robert Murray Hansen was 23 years old. They promoted him, honored him, named ships and awards for him. They wrote that he had 25 victories. Some believe there were more. What no one doubts is this. On one morning over Rabaul, one Marine pilot faced 21 enemy fighters, scattered them, saved 18 bombers, came home through fire and metal. 4 days later, he did not come home at all. And as long as this story is told, as long as his name is spoken, Robert Hansen does not disappear into silence.